All right. This is going to be interesting. So, this is a topic that is big nationally and local. Local meaning in Ohio. Um, so, that is the question of is this Ohio State Buckeye team a legitimate team to not only just make the playoffs this year, but actually put up a fight? Unlike years past where we got in and we just didn't put anything together, or we looked like we could have gotten in, but we didn't. This year, it's being talked about by people who are typically non Buckeye fans, people who are very hard on Ohio State, not supporters of Ohio State. A lot of them this year are saying this team is for real. And as Buckeye fans, there's either the side that is like, yes, I'm sold, this team's for real, or there's the side of this team has always let me down. I'm just waiting for it to happen. So I'm going to go over this a little bit, talk about some things, and let you know my opinion on the whole situation. And before I even get started into it, this is not going to be like um, a fanboy type thing of yeah, we're for real, we're going to beat everybody on the board. This is going to be a realistic expectation slash you know in-depth review um, on this team. So far this season, Ohio State is 6-0. Looking at the schedule preseason, a lot of teams on the schedule so far weren't looked at as like that's the one they're going to lose. If any, it was Nebraska, just because of the fact it was in prime time. It was a night game on the road at Nebraska, in which Ohio State did win. Ohio State went on the road and won 48-7 in that game, and just completely dominated the whole way through. Ohio State so far this season has dominated. 34 points is the minimum that they've put up so far. The maximum is 21, and that was in the first game against FAU. I was at that game. There's been a lot of changes from the first game to now. That defense, they're clicking on all cylinders. The offense, same thing. So there's been a lot of change. Obviously, the last week's game was Michigan State. That was at Ohio State. That always seems to be a closer game, especially than it should be. Mark D'Antoni is always um, given, or particularly Urban Meyer, but Ohio State in general, a lot of trouble. So Michigan State was a game where it was like, should we win? Yes. Were we expected to win? Yes. Um, it was the fancy blackout uniforms, blackout game, prime time again, two back-to-back primetime games. But at the start of that game, it was rough, very rough. I was terrified. And that's the simplest way to put it. I have been looking for, as every year, as every Buckeye fan does, it's not kind of a are we going to lose? It's a when are we going to lose? Because the last few years, this team has conditioned us to get our heart broken at least once. And it's usually against a team that we should win, typically at their house. So far this season, Nebraska was the one people were saying could be that loss. Cincinnati was talked about like that game could be close. That game was a shutout, 42-0. Very dominant so far this season. That's one word to describe Ohio State. Has just been completely dominant. Currently, next game coming up is going to be Northwestern. That's on a Friday night. That's going to be the 18th. It's kind of one of those weird games. I had listed this game or circled this game on my schedule as a potential trap game only, and this was preseason. This isn't now. That was only because of the fact that it's a Friday night, weird schedule on the road. You know how it goes. So I had circled that game as possibly a trap game. Now, coming off of that game, it's going to be Wisconsin. This is the game that everybody and their grandma is going to be watching this game because this is the matchup that determines are we for real from the standpoint of facing these top level teams? We've wiped the floor with a lot of these teams who are, some of them are respected, some of them aren't respected, but they have talent. All right. Michigan State has talent. Nebraska has talent. These teams have talent, but we haven't played a team that is a top tier level necessarily. I mean, some people say Michigan State, um, but really, it's not like we have played a completely well rounded team quite yet as far as playing at a high level. Wisconsin will be that game. Obviously, you see what Jonathan Taylor's doing so far this season. They finally have a quarterback who can do something. Not saying Hornibrook was absolutely garbage, but he wasn't putting up nearly the production that they have right now. And with that running game, that's unstoppable. So Wisconsin's going to be a major threat. Um, then, as far as everything else on the schedule, after Wisconsin, it's Maryland, Rutgers. That should be two very easy games. Maryland last year gave us a tough time. I don't think this year will be any trouble. Then it's Penn State. That game's going to be very, very interesting, and I'll get into that later. And then Michigan, which is it a rivalry game? Yes. I'm not going to be stupid enough to say we shouldn't even worry about that game, because in these rivalry games, especially just like what's coming up this upcoming weekend with the Red River rivalry. I don't know why I couldn't say that. But anyway, Oklahoma, Texas. This is one of those games where should Oklahoma win big? Yeah, but you know what? Texas can get the job done. They got it done last week, and last year, not last week. I won't be surprised if Texas can pull it off this year. I'm not joking. And I think the Ohio State Michigan game, to me, yes, I'm biased, but to me that's the greatest college football rivalry of all time. Just because no matter how much we as in Ohio State win, that's always going to be a game where they're going to come out firing on all cylinders, and it's just going to be awesome. That it's every year, no matter how bad or how good one side is, it's going to be a fight. So, I mean, who knows? Should we win that game? Yes, but like I said, it's a rivalry. So, anyway, that's the rest of the schedule. Now, as far as what has gone on this season, one of the major questions was Urban Meyer leaving, Ryan Day stepping up, first-year head coach. How is he going to be able to adapt? I wouldn't say adapt, but kind of move into his new situation as head coach. How is he going to be able to adjust? And one other big part of this situation was the quarterback situation. Dwayne Haskins declares for the NFL draft, ends up getting drafted to the Redskins. Ohio State sitting there with a big hole at quarterback. Next thing you know, this kid out of Georgia, Justin Fields, a guy who was a big, big name recruit, a guy who was right up there with Trevor Lawrence. He kind of slipped under the shadow. He didn't start over Jake Fromm. He was used pretty much primarily as a running back when he was played. And when he was played, it was in situations where it was blowouts and they didn't want to pass the ball. They wanted to run the ball and get the game over with. So Justin Fields never got a shot really to prove what he can do as far as throwing the ball in college. High school is a totally different story. High school, he did what he's doing right now. And yes, it's against high school talent, but still you're seeing it. You're seeing that he can do more than just run the ball. So Justin Fields comes in, fills the spot of Dwayne Haskins, going into this new day. So there's a lot of questions there. How's he going to be able to step up and play? Last year, Dwayne Haskins' numbers last year. Haskins went 413 for 590. That's a 70% completion, 5,396 yards, average 9.1. Hold on. No, I read that wrong. I read his career stats. Last year, these are the stats for last year. 370, 3 out of 533. That's 70%. He had 4,831 yards, 9.1, 50 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Absolutely phenomenal by Dwayne Haskins. This isn't going to be about his NFL career. We're just talking about college. He left big shoes to fill there in that quarterback room. And a part of Justin Fields coming to Ohio State was because of Dwayne Haskins. They had some sort of relationship. And basically, Ryan Day, he trusted him, believed that he was going to be able to take over and do good things as his head coach. Dwayne Haskins is 6'3", 231 pounds. So, one thing with Justin Fields is people don't understand how big he is. Justin Fields is also listed as 6'3", 223 pounds. So, people talk about how prototypical Dwayne Haskins was. He was that perfect pocket passing quarterback. Wow, say that 5 times fast. But anyway, he was talked about how prototypical he was. Justin Fields, I tell you what, Dwayne Haskins is the same height, 10 pounds heavier. Justin Fields is 223 pounds. This is not a small dude. I've got a chance to see him in person a couple times now. The dude he just looks like a star. I mean, he's built like Cam Newton. That's just not here's the closest comparison. He looks like Cam Newton. Cam's a little bit bigger, but Fields has that build. He is fast. He is the real deal. He can throw it. He can run it. He's insane. So far this season, he's put up 1,298 passing yards, 18 TDs, 1 interception that was thrown in the last game. Up until that Michigan State game, he had yet to throw an interception. 94.1 QBR. Fields has been unstoppable. He's making his Heisman He's making his Heisman campaign. He hasn't been really talked about like some of these guys are because of Jalen Hurts, because of the history of these Oklahoma quarterbacks. But let me tell you, Fields is right there with him. All right, he's been playing at a insane level. And it's partly due to having that run game. This Ohio State team is, as much as I loved Haskins, it is made for a quarterback who can be a dual threat. And that's Justin Fields. If he had not gone to Ohio State, he would have probably went to Oklahoma. And I think if he went to Oklahoma, I think Jalen Hurts probably would have ended up at Ohio State. You can call me biased. You can say I'm wrong. But in my opinion, if you gave me these two options, who would you rather have right now at Ohio State, Jalen Hurts or Justin Fields? In my opinion, I think Justin Fields fits the school much better than Jalen Hurts would. And here's why. This offense has been perfect for quarterbacks who can run. Braxton Miller, JT Barrett. Dwayne Haskins was a unique situation. You can't pass up on that talent. So it was kind of molded, even though they tried to mold Haskins into that offensive style. It didn't work great with him running. But regardless, even though this is a new head coach, it's still a similar offense. From that standpoint, Fields has stepped up and played amazing. He lost a lot of receiving talent, Terry McLaurin, Dixon, but he was getting a lot of guys back, Benjamin Victor, KJ Hill, Chris Olave, and surprisingly, Olave was a guy who started to shine in the Michigan game. He's been the one who has stepped up and played the highest. I have noticed him as that guy who you look at quarterbacks, usually they always have their go-to guy. 9 times out of 10, it's the number one receiver. But I wouldn't consider Olave the number one receiver necessarily. I'd have to check again on the depth chart what he is, but I would say that I don't know. It's really unique because KJ Hill was very good last year. Benjamin Victor was very good last year. Olave's still young. I believe he's a sophomore. Um, but so is Fields. So he's kind of been his go-to guy. And so for Fields, he has been electric. He's played at a high level. He's played unstoppable. And that's not me being a Buckeye fan. That's just reality. And so for this team, do we have weaknesses? Can we play at a high level? I think the question heard around here with this team was, I don't see any weaknesses. I don't think we have any. This team has weaknesses. Every team has weaknesses. There's no perfect team. Now, we're the most dominant team in the country at all aspects, in my opinion. I think a lot of guys agree with that. But the weaknesses that we are very slow starting games. This is something I've noticed in pretty much every game. Not necessarily like guaranteed always to start slow, but you look at a game like that Miami of Ohio game. You start off and you're losing 5-0, and then it turns out into, I think it was like a 70 some point um, blowout. My page just went away. 76-5. You went from 5-0 to 76-5. Um, Same thing with Michigan State. If we had not gotten those fumbles when we did, they could have gone up 14-0. We just started slow, and I think the issue here, I haven't agreed always with the play calling, um, but I think at times it's catered towards, I don't know. It's a weird kind of way because it's like we run the ball when I think we should pass, and we pass when I think we should run. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but I don't know. So, um, yeah, slow starts have been something that has been pretty consistent with this team. A team, when you play like Wisconsin, you can't start that slow, plain and simple. Jonathan Taylor's going to have 21 points on the board before you can blink if you start that slow. So that's team that this weakness. They're good lord, that's a weakness that this team has that I could see potentially biting them in the butt. And another major weakness, and this is a luxury we have because of the talent we have on that offensive line, and we've had to replace a lot of guys. You know, Michael Jordan was a big guy who, he played center, but he was just dynamic blocking. And there's a bunch of other guys that got replaced. But one thing that we've done because of the time we've had is Justin Fields is holding on to the ball a lot, and too long, a lot. He's a very young quarterback. He's played at a high level, like I said. But one thing that he does is he holds on to the freaking football. And with the offensive line we'd have, that allows him to do that. But when you're playing a defense like Penn State, where they play quick, they play fast, they're going to get to you, all right? And you've seen some of that in the Michigan State game. Coach Ryan Day said it. The only way we were going to beat this team is just keep hammering what our game plan was, and eventually it would break. Meaning Michigan State they knew how to stop us. It was just a matter of keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it, and eventually we'll get it. That's kind of how this team has been. We can't hold on to football. Once you play a team that has a fast defense, you're going to have to adjust on the fly. I would rather you practice to be able to get the ball out quick than have to adjust mid-game, because when I was at the game, there was in the FAU game, there was a couple passes that were open. It was just that split second now throw. If you know about football, you know what I'm saying. He just didn't hit him. He waited. Now, did that open up for a touchdown? Yes, it did. But here's the situation. That touchdown ain't going to be there when you play a good team. Now, the whole thing of who they play, that's been tossed around here. They ain't played nobody. Um, I would argue this. Have we played anybody super high level? No, not yet. But who have Alabama played? Who has Clemson played? Who has Oklahoma played? Um, you've seen the Cincinnati team that we destroyed go and beat UCF. So I don't know. Michigan State's defense was frail. Nebraska's not a horrible team. They're not playing their greatest, but they're not horrible. Indiana, they're not the best, but they're not horrible. So this whole argument of who have we played, we haven't played anybody at a super high level, but we have played talent. I think our schedule stacks up a lot better than Alabama's and a lot better than Clemson and even Oklahoma's at this point. Obviously, Alabama plays LSU. We get it. But at the end of the day, at the end of the season, if Ohio State wins out, you beat a Penn State team that's currently ranked 10. You beat Wisconsin that's ranked 8th. Michigan's ranked 16. I don't think they'll stay there. I think they'll possibly be unranked when we play them. Cincinnati right now is 25. That's 3 ranked teams. 3 if Michigan's not ranked. But these are some good teams we got coming up. We're going to find out how real this team is. We're on a bye week this week. Come out, play Northwestern in that Friday night game. Before the season, I was a little bit worried about this game. I'm not worried about it now. I think we'll be fine. The Wisconsin game, that's going to be a fun one to watch. Even if you told me, hey, you're going to lose this game, if you already know, if you're from the future and you know, hey, Ohio State loses this game, at least we'll know what we are. Even if we lose. I expect us to win, but I want to know who this team is. All right. I think I know who this team is, but the whole argument of who have they played, I think it stacks up when you play Wisconsin. Once we play Wisconsin, then I'll know. But like I said, I'm used to this team having that one heartbreaking game. I'm hoping that this year's different. It feels a lot different. Guys like Chase Young, you lose a lot of talent. These big name colleges. You see Clemson, they lost their extremely talented defensive line, a lot of them. Clelin Ferrell, you got Dexter Lawrence. They lose these guys, and they haven't been able to play at as high level. We lost Nick Bosa, and you've seen what he did to my Browns, but a guy like Chase Young doubled in size, and he is words can't describe how dominant he can be. All right. He is already playing dominant, but he can play at a higher level. Sometimes now it might just be the kind of defense that was drawn up for that play. But if he's gunning for you and he's trying his hardest, you're going to get down. That you have no chance. I'd hate to be a quarterback seeing Chase Young on the other side. And, you look at guys like Okuda playing out of their mind. Damon Arnett's playing great. There's a lot of guys, pretty much this whole secondary and linebacking core is the same from last year. All these guys who were struggling so much, you bring in a new defensive coordinator, you got new coaches, not a new culture, but there's that new aspect, and these guys are playing out of their mind. This Ohio State defense is elite. They're not just for real. They're elite. So we'll see. I'm very happy where we're at right now. I didn't think it would be this good. I didn't think that we'd be putting up a minimum of 34 points. If you ask me preseason, hey, at the end of the Michigan State game, what do you think the minimum of points you put up? I would probably say, I don't know, maybe 20, 21 minimum. But 34, that's a great number. And the maximum of points allowed, 21 in your first game. You take that first game out, the maximum you allowed scored is 10. So, and that's in the last game. So, hey, this team we're right there. We're we're set up now this year for the playoffs is there's a lot of talent. Whereas some years it's like all you got to do is win out. You have to win impressively, and that's one thing. My mom's telling me and my grandma's telling me, saying about how why are they still putting up points. Said, you know what? They got their third and fourth string guys in. You're running the table because of the playoffs. The way as long as this playoff is set up with four teams, you have to dominate like this. You have to put up these points. Ohio State should have won 41-10 against Michigan State. And you look at the recent scores: 34, 48, 76, 51, 42, 45. At the end of the year, those are going to help you so much because you're going to look back, and when you're saying, okay, Alabama, what they put up, Oklahoma, and there's a lot going on in the SEC right now. With LSU playing as good as they are, Alabama hasn't really played anybody. That's going to be a test. I think LSU could win that one. Can you imagine if LSU went on the road to Alabama and beat them? Georgia's there. There's so many good teams this year. It's just insane. So you're going to have to win impressively, especially a team like Ohio State, who, in your recent playoff performances, hasn't put up a real good case. So it all just depends, I think Ohio State's got to win out to get in. People are finally seeing how good this team is. This is the best Ohio State team I think I've seen since the championship. And you look at the talent that was on that team. You look now at the NFL: Zeke Elliott, Michael Thomas, Eli Apple, Marshawn Lattimore. You look at these guys, not Nick Bosa, Joey Bosa, but the names are countless. Even a guy like Devin Smith, who I thought was going to be unstoppable in the NFL, has found new light with the Cowboys after multiple injuries, and he has been looking good, or looking better recently. So that team was full of talent who made it in the NFL. This team, I think, is just as good. Now, I'm not saying these guys on this team are those guys or will be, but I think the potential's there. The talent's certainly there. So we'll see. I think the future's bright. Recruiting was the big question with Urban leaving. I think this team's better without Urban right now. And it hurts to say it. I love Urban to death, but I think this team right now is better without Urban. I think it's just the new situation. Ohio State's usually not necessarily doubted. I look at it as like this. In that Michigan game last year, no matter what anybody tries to tell you, 99% of people thought Michigan was winning that game in the horseshoe. I myself was sitting there like, are they really going to do this? And the thought crossed my head that night, the night before, can you imagine if we somehow find a way to blow them out? And we did. I didn't think it was going to happen, but we somehow found a way. But anyway, so my point with that analogy is we played as underdogs. This team was listed as the third best team in the Big Ten preseason. I forget what board that was, but they were. And this team has motivation. They're hungry, and they're coming to play. So, you fix some small issues. You start off, you get things clicking early. Be smart play calling. Get the ball out quicker. Don't hold on to the ball as much. This team is golden. I think, Paul Feinbaum is a guy who's all SEC. You look at how LSU's playing. You're looking at Alabama. You look at Georgia. The fact that he loves this team as much as, well, I wouldn't say loves, but the fact that he understands and says that this team is the number one team in the country blows my mind. For Paul Feinbaum to tell you this team is the best team in the country, as if you're a Buckeye fan, that should get you thrilled. Now, like I said, we're conditioned to always lose that one. And, Who knows? Maybe it's going to be to a Maryland that you don't expect. Northwestern. You never know. But this team, if those small issues can get fixed, I don't know who's beating him. And that's not me being biased. I think that's complete reality. So we'll see. I hope everything turns out as good as it says. I think actually, I think there's more guys who are not Buckeye fans high on this team than some Buckeye fans are, because I think we're conditioned to be disappointed at least once. So I don't know. I mean, I love Justin Fields. Even I didn't know he was going to do this. And I think it's going to be really interesting as far as the Heisman race goes, because there's so many good players right now. Tua's obviously there. Jalen's obviously there. Um, and I think it could come down to a situation where it's a toss-up between the three, and Jalen Hurts wins because of Lincoln Riley. So if he can continue playing at the high level that he is, I mean, the man threw his first pick in one game. All right. Or in his first pick in the last game is what I'm trying to say. So I think he deserves a little bit of leeway here. So, yeah. Is Ohio State for real? I think yes. All right. I'm hoping I didn't just jinx us, but I think if I had to bet money, do we make the playoffs? I'd say yes. And that is with a lot of good teams right now. So for me, I think that says a lot. So, yeah, with that being said, do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe, share the video. Appreciate you watching. Let me know what you think. Is this Ohio State team really for real? I want to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next video. Bye.